So we're just going to try to find some way to help people find common overarching goals and to work towards those goals rather than to spend so much of our energy fighting.
Good idea.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Councilmember Cheh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Can I ask you, you have testimony here, and does this testimony reflect the views of all the members of the
Absolutely.
ANC? And they read through this and they approve of all the words that are in here?
They approved of my draft, and I might have made some editorial changes that they haven't seen.
They're in agreement with this?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me ask you, and I assume when you prepared this testimony, you believe that it's important to be accurate?
As much as possible.
And I assume you think that it's important not to, by implication, mislead?
Absolutely. Correct me if I'm wrong anywhere in the testimony.
Well, let me ask you for a moment to turn to page 2. You have a paragraph in there. It's the paragraph near the end. It says a developer approached the community.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. It says a developer approached the community and the Ward 3 council member. Are you saying the developer approached me directly?
Well, it's our understanding that you met with the community and the developer.
Are you saying that the developer the sentence is a developer approached the community and Ward 3 council member with an unsolicited bid, et cetera? Is the implication there that the developer came to me and approached me with this unsolicited bid?
My implication is that the developer approached the community, and that would encompass the Ward 3 council member,
Okay.
and that
Well,
you met about it.
If that's so, then that is misleading, because that suggests that the developer came to me directly with an unsolicited bid to develop that site. And
So you would say that's not true?
Well, I'm asking you what you meant to say, because we'll get to the facts in a moment. You're claiming that the developer came to me with an unsolicited bid to develop that site. Is that correct?
I'm claiming the issue came before you.
Well, that's a lot different than suggesting that the developer approached the Ward 3 council member with an unsolicited bid, et cetera. Okay, let's move on. Then you say in this particular paragraph that Councilmember Cheh, along with Councilmember Brown, sent a letter to the mayor urging him to pursue this land sale. Mm-hmm. Do you have a copy of the letter?
I do in my files.
Okay. Now, if you were to look at that letter says that there are advantages to having a comprehensive development of the site. But the thrust of that letter was to make sure that there wasn't a single bid, that there were multiple bids, if we were to move in that direction.
No, I'm not implying that you said that you should just sell it to roadside. I said that you urged him to pursue this land sale.
You know, let's look at the language, okay? If I were to read this. Councilmember Cheh, along with Councilmember Brown, sent a letter to the mayor urging him to pursue this land sale. Mm-hmm. You know,
this land, Janney.
I understand the English language, and the implication there is that Councilmember Brown and I wrote a letter to the mayor urging him to pursue the land sale aforementioned in your paragraph.
On June 6th, yes.
And
this
letter,
land sale of Janney land and the library.
That letter says that there are advantages to comprehensively developing the site, but that we shouldn't rely on an unsolicited bid.
Correct.
And it was our recommendation to the mayor that if we were to pursue this, it should be with an RFP.
Correct.
Right. And that is not the implication of your language.
Okay, well, that's your interpretation.
No, it's not my interpretation. I think that when you present testimony to this council and make this public, that you ought to be careful to be accurate when you're in effect making some charges here. You go on to say that this happened without ANC input or knowledge and without benefit of public input. Now, is it your contention that before I write a letter to the mayor about my view of something, I need your input?
You knew that we were studying this? You knew that we were having meetings about it?
Is it your contention that as an elected member of this council, I'm not to write a letter to the mayor expressing my view on a matter without your input? Is that what your contention is?
Does it say I think you should?
I'm asking you a question.
I know
Is it
you're
your
asking me a
view-
question, but I'm
is
saying it
your
happened
view-
without it. Did I put a
is-
value judgment on that?
Is it your view that before an elected member of the Council of the District of Columbia sends a letter to the mayor that they must seek the ANC input? Is that your view, yes or
Well,
no?
that's pretty absurd, but that's not what's applied here.
Is that your view?
You know, I don't think this is a
Is
trial, Councilmember
is that
Cheh,
your
and I would
view?
ask you
You're
to let me
testifying.
finish my sentence.
I'm asking you to answer my question. Is that
Yes,
your
but
view?
you're interrogating me, and I'd like you to let me talk about this rather than
I
interrogate
would like
me.
to have your answer. Is it yes or is it no?
Any letter you send the mayor, any letter at all that you send the mayor,
Is it
you
yes
think
or
I
no?
imply that the ANC has to see that?
You won't.
Is that what you're asking me? I want to be
You
clear
won't
on
answer the
your question.
And then you said this happened without any ANC input or knowledge and without the benefit of public input.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you aware that there were many meetings in the community about this matter prior to that time?
I'm aware of small group meetings, and I'm aware of the ANC meeting
Right. So when you're saying without the
But I'm
benefit of public input,
on the letter that you wrote.
so that there was no public input on the matter of the Tenley-Janney Library development.
Well, selective input.
Well, it didn't meet your level of input perhaps, but it says without the benefit of public input.
How many of those groups
That's-
knew you wrote that letter?
The language here, I'm questioning your language, says without the benefit of public input. That's a categorical statement. That's not true. Okay? That's another thing that's not true. And then your
How
next
about
sentence.
without the publicity?
Then your next sentence is, the deputy mayor then made the decision as if it is in a direct line, so that the letter was sent and then the deputy mayor made a decision. This paragraph,
That
if
occurred after
anybody
the letter.
if anybody reads this paragraph, I would defy them to see this as a benign statement. It is rather a charge. It is a charge against me. And I think it's inaccurate and misleading. It is as inaccurate and misleading as some of the memoranda of concern that you have put out about this project, suggesting, for example, that I have a conflict of interest, that I've engaged
We never
in-
suggested you had a conflict of interest,
Yes, you
Councilmember
have.
Cheh.
And
That's
that-
false.
And that I have engaged in something suggesting...
Where does it say that in the causes of concern?
Well, we can get the memoranda. I
Go
don't
ahead,
have them
go
in
get
front
it.
of me. But I suggest to you that you can take whatever position you want, but when you put things in paper, when you testify before this council, when you go out in public, it should be accurate and not misleading. And I believe your testimony on these points is both inaccurate and misleading. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I disagree.
Thank you, Councilmember Cheh. Thank you very much, Commissioner Sullivan. We appreciate your service, not only as a commissioner serving a single-member district, but also as a treasurer, which has got to be a demanding job as well to keep track. I mean, frankly, keeping track of $20,000 is probably as time-consuming as $200,000 or $2 million, because the same principles are involved.
Right.
Again, thank you very much for staying with
welcome.
us this evening, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.